Chosen one, can I ask you something that's going to hit you like ice water at 3 a.m.? Why do you think your life has been harder than everyone else's? Why have you survived betrayals that should have buried you 6 feet under? Why, and listen closely now, why does it feel like invisible forces have been tracking your every move since the day you were born? Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Right now, at this very moment, there's a photograph of you sitting on a table, not in some dusty family album, not on your grandkids' Facebook page, but on a table carved from materials that don't exist in any chemistry book you've ever read. A table surrounded by beings whose job, whose obsession, is to study you, to decode you, to find the one crack in your armor that will finally bring you down. They sent your photo to the darkest council in all of creation, and when they looked at it, when they really looked, something happened that hasn't happened in 10,000 years. They trembled, not because you're weak, chosen one, because you're a weapon they never saw coming. Your scars? Those aren't failures, those are credentials. Your pain? That's not punishment. That's your training manual, and that photograph they're holding right now, thinking it's your vulnerability laid bare, that's actually the blueprint to their unraveling. Before we go one word further, let me say this from my heart. Thank you. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I am deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message already resonates with your soul, if something in your chest just stirred awake, go ahead and let that seed of faith take root. Now, if your spirit is trembling right now, if something ancient inside you just woke up and said, "This is about me, I need you to do something," type "I receive" in the comments right now. Not tomorrow, not after you think about it. Right now. Let heaven know you're listening, and let hell know their time is up, because what I'm about to tell you will explain every single thing that never made sense about your life. Tell me something, chosen one. When was the last time you looked at an old photograph of yourself and felt watched? Like something beyond the frame was staring back at you? What if that feeling wasn't paranoia? What if you were right? Right now, in a realm that exists between heartbeats, between the tick and the tock of your bedroom clock, there's a council meeting about you. 7 beings older than the pyramids, wiser than Solomon, more cunning than the serpent in Eden. They're gathered around a table so black it swallows light. And in the center of that table, bathed in impossible luminescence, sits your photograph. Not the one from last Christmas. Not your driver's license photo. This one's different. It was taken in a moment you don't remember. A moment when your guard was down. When you thought nobody was looking. When the weight of 70, 80, 90 years finally showed on your face. And they think they've got you figured out. One of them, a thing that shifts between shadow and substance, picks up your image with fingers that have toppled empires and whispered lies to kings. It examines every line on your face like a cartographer mapping enemy territory, every wrinkle, every age spot, every scar that life carved into your skin when you weren't looking. Look at these marks, it hisses to the others, voice like gravel scraping bone. Battle wounds, evidence of defeats. This one has been broken, and here's where they make their fatal mistake. They see your scars and think weakness. They see your age and think finished. They see your struggles and think defeated. But they're reading the map upside down, chosen one. Because those scars they're studying so carefully, those aren't evidence of your defeats, those are your credentials. Your resume written in the language of survival. 2 Corinthians 4-8-9 thunders across the centuries. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. Do you hear that? Struck down but not destroyed. That heart attack you survived at 62 when the doctors gave you a 10% chance. That's not a scar, that's a testimony. That bankruptcy in 2008 that should have buried you, that's not shame. That's a PhD in faith. That spouse you buried after 53 years of marriage, when grief should have killed you, but somehow you're still here, still breathing, still believing. That's not weakness, dear one. That's the kind of strength that makes hell nervous. Because here's what they're just now beginning to realize as they stare at your photograph. You weren't supposed to survive any of it. The cancer, the depression, the wars, the losses that came in waves so relentless you forgot what dry land felt like. According to every calculation they made, every curse they whispered, every door they slammed, you should be dust by now. But you're not. You're here, still standing, still fighting, still believing that the God who brought you through the last 80 years isn't about to abandon you in the final stretch. And that terrifies them more than any army ever could. The council chamber starts to shake. Not from fear, not yet, but from the realization dawning on them like a sunrise they can't stop. What they're holding isn't a target, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, they see the cracks in their own empire of lies. Your survival is their prophecy of doom. If you've carried your scars like shame your whole life, if you've apologized for still being here when others are gone, if you've ever looked in the mirror and seen nothing but damage, type this right now. My scars are my crown. Because chosen one, they're about to learn what those scars really mean. And trust me when I tell you they wish they'd never asked. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. While you've been living your ordinary life, pouring your morning coffee, paying your bills, sitting in your favorite chair, watching the evening news, something extraordinary has been happening in a place your eyes can't see. There's a room. Not in Manhattan, not in any city, on any map. A room that exists between heartbeats, in the space where thought becomes reality. And in that room sits a council so ancient, they watched empires rise and fall like waves on a beach. 7 beings, each one more cunning than the last, each one responsible for keeping humanity asleep, docile, manageable. They call themselves the Council of Shadows. And tonight, they're terrified. Because your photograph just landed on their table. One of them, a creature whose form flickers between a Wall Street executive and something with too many eyes, picks up your image with trembling fingers, fingers that have toppled kingdoms, fingers that have signed the death warrants of prophets, and those fingers are shaking. This one is accelerating. It hisses. Another leans closer, studying your face like it's reading ancient scripture. The energy signature is beyond our records. Look at the resonance fields. Reality itself warps around them. Think about that for a second. Your photograph, just a simple image, is bending their reality, making their calculations fail, breaking their ancient formulas. But here's what I need you to understand. What is it about you that terrifies beings who've controlled humanity for millennia? What do they see in your eyes that makes their blood run cold? What have you survived that proves you're not just another face in the crowd? The eldest among them speaks, and his voice sounds like stars dying. If this one reaches full awakening before we act, the cascade effect could destabilize everything we've built. Everything they've built. Think about what that means. Every system designed to keep you small. Every voice that told you to settle. Every door that slammed when you reached for more. Every person who betrayed you right when you needed them most. That wasn't random, dear one. That was warfare. Strategic, calculated warfare against someone they recognized as a threat before you even knew your own power. Look at history. Harriet Tubman, they called her a simple slave. But she walked through enemy territory 19 times, freed over 300 souls, and never lost a single passenger. The authorities couldn't catch her because she carried something they couldn't fight: divine navigation. Nelson Mandela, locked in a cell for 27 years, they thought they'd broken him. But he walked out of that prison and dismantled the entire system that tried to destroy him, not with violence, with something far more dangerous: moral authority that couldn't be questioned. Joan of Arc, an illiterate teenage girl from a nowhere village. Yet she led armies, crowned kings, and changed the course of Western civilization. Why? Because she heard a voice the powerful couldn't control. What did they all have in common? They were ordinary people who became divine disruption, and the systems that feared them spent everything trying to stop them. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 tells us, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." Does that sound like your life? Have you been pressed but never crushed? Struck down but somehow still standing? That's not luck, chosen one. That's proof. You carry divine authority, and every force of darkness knows it. The council member with too many eyes speaks again, each eye spinning in panic. How long before full awakening? This current cycle, the eldest responds. Once it happens, the cascade becomes irreversible. They're not just afraid of you, they're afraid of what happens when you remember who you are. Because one awakened chosen, one doesn't just free themselves, they trigger a chain reaction that frees thousands. Right now, if you feel this truth vibrating in your chest, if you recognize yourself in this story, drop 777 inches the comments. Let heaven see your declaration. Let hell know their time is up. Because what I'm about to show you next will prove beyond doubt why they've been hunting you since the day you were born. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to shatter every assumption you've ever made about spiritual warfare. That photograph, the one they've been passing around in rooms darker than midnight, it finally lands in his hands. The devil himself, the ancient adversary. The one who convinced a third of heaven's angels to fall. The architect of every lie ever whispered into human ears since the Garden of Eden. And you know what happens when he picks up your image? His hands tremble, not with rage, not with that cold, calculated malice he's perfected over millennia, but with something he hasn't felt since before the rebellion. Something that terrifies him more than any angel's sword ever could. Recognition. He sees himself, not as he is now twisted, corrupted, draped in darkness like a funeral shroud, but as he was, before pride became his prison, before rebellion became his identity, before he traded his wings for chains and called it freedom. Your photograph doesn't show him your weakness, dear one. It shows him the possibility of his own redemption. Think about that for a moment. The being who has spent eternity convincing humanity they're beyond saving, he looks at you and sees proof that he might not be beyond saving either. Every scar on your soul that should have destroyed you but didn't. Every night you chose faith over bitterness. Every morning you got up when staying down would have been easier. Every single refusal to let darkness define you. It's all there in that photograph. Written in a language older than words. Romans 12:21 cuts through the cosmic noise like lightning through storm clouds. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. But here's what most people miss: that verse isn't just defensive, it's offensive. It's not about merely surviving evil's attacks. It's about transforming evil itself through the sheer force of relentless goodness. You've been doing that your whole life without even knowing it. Every time someone betrayed you and you chose forgiveness over vengeance. Every time life knocked you down and you whispered "not yet" instead of "never again." Every time you looked at your reflection, tired eyes, weathered hands, a body that's carried more weight than it should, and still found a reason to believe tomorrow could be different. You turned your pain into power, your wounds into wisdom, your brokenness into a bridge for others to cross. And now the devil, the master manipulator, the father of lies, he's holding undeniable proof that love is stronger than hate, that light always finds a way through darkness, that even the most fallen can be faced with the invitation to rise again. Here's what's driving him to the edge of an existential crisis. If you can survive everything thrown at you and still radiate hope, if someone with your history, your hurts, your reasons to quit can still choose love, then maybe, just maybe, the game he's been playing for eons is already over. He lost, not to superior force, but to superior choice. The council around him is screaming for strategies, demanding plans to dismantle you, but he can't speak. Because looking at your photograph has awakened something in him that's been dead for longer than human civilization has existed. Conscience. So let me ask you something that's going to land in your spirit like an earthquake. What does it mean that even the enemy of your soul sees light in you that you sometimes can't see in yourself? What does it say about your true nature when the Prince of Darkness has to shield his eyes from your radiance? Type these words in the comments right now. Let them be your battle cry and your testimony. Even the enemy sees my light. Because, chosen one, if the devil himself can't deny your power, what makes you think you can? Now here's what you need to understand about what happens next. Listen to me carefully, dear one. I know why you're watching this at whatever hour found you. Maybe it's that hollow time after midnight when the house is too quiet and the memories are too loud. Maybe you're sitting at your kitchen table, the same table where you used to feed a family that doesn't call anymore. Maybe you're staring at that empty chair across from you, the one that held your husband for 43 years before God called him home and left you here, wondering why. You think those tears you've cried into your pillow at 3 a.m. disappeared into cotton and darkness. You think nobody saw. You think nobody counted them. But Revelation 5-8 tells us something that should stop your heart and restart it all at once. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's holy people. Golden bowls, beloved, not disposable cups, not forgotten puddles. Your tears are being stored in vessels of gold before the throne of the Almighty. Every single tear you cried when your daughter stopped answering your calls, collected. Every night you sat alone after burying the love of your life, witnessed. Every moment you felt invisible while the world rushed past you like you were already a ghost. God was taking inventory. Could it be that your very scars are the sermon heaven wanted, written? Think about this. When they look at your photograph in that dark chamber, they don't see what you see in the mirror. You see wrinkles and you think weakness. They see battle scars and they know terror. You see loneliness and call it punishment. They see isolation and recognize it as preparation. Because here's what nobody tells you about divine preparation. It feels exactly like abandonment. Joseph knew this. 17 years old with dreams of greatness. And where did God send him? Into a pit, into slavery, into prison. For 13 years he sat in that dungeon, wondering if God had forgotten his name. But Psalm 105-19 says, "Until what he foretold came to pass, till the word of the Lord proved him true." The prison wasn't punishment. It was God writing prophecy into Joseph's bones, one lonely night at a time. Your empty kitchen? That's not emptiness. That's sacred space being cleared for something the old life couldn't contain. Your broken heart over children who walked away? That's not failure. That's God breaking your heart wide enough to hold the orphan souls he's about to send your way. Your late-night tears? Those aren't weakness. Those are liquid prophecy being stored up. And beloved, the interest heaven pays on tears would bankrupt every bank on Wall Street. Could it be that the very things that almost destroyed you were actually the weapons God was forging in you? I'm talking to the grandmother whose own daughter hasn't spoken to her in 7 years, to the grandfather who worked himself half to death and now sits alone with a pension that doesn't cover the pills, to the widow who sets one plate on the table and pretends it doesn't break her heart every single morning. Your scars aren't random, they're runes. Spiritual inscriptions written in a language darkness can read and fear. Every betrayal taught you discernment that angels study. Every loss gave you authority over grief that demons cannot penetrate. Every moment you chose to keep breathing when dying seemed easier. That wasn't survival, that was prophecy in motion. Job lost everything: children, wealth, health, dignity, and his own wife told him to curse God and die. But Job 42:12 says, "The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part." Not the early part, the latter part. Your latter years aren't your leftover years, they're your greater years. The pain you've carried in silence is about to become the voice that breaks someone else's chains. The scar you hide under long sleeves is about to become the testimony that saves a life. That photograph they're studying, they see your wounds and call them vulnerabilities. God sees your wounds and calls them credentials. So right now, if you've been carrying pain so long you forgot what it feels like to be light, if you've been silent so long you forgot your voice matters, I need you to do something that will shift the atmosphere in every realm. Type these 4 words in the comments. My pain is prophecy. Don't just read them. Declare them. Because when you do, you're not just making a statement. You're issuing a decree that every force of darkness has been dreading since the day you were born. But here's what happens next. And this is where everything you thought you knew about your story is about to shatter into 1,000 shards of blazing light. Beloved chosen one, as we come to the close of this sacred moment together, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, that photograph they're holding in those dark chambers. It's not your weakness, it's their terror. Your scars aren't evidence of God's absence. They're proof of His presence, marking you as someone heaven trusts with fire. Second, those tears you thought disappeared into the night, they're stored in golden bowls before the throne of the Almighty. Not one has been wasted, not one has been forgotten. Every moment of pain has been converting into prophetic power, and the interest heaven pays on suffering would bankrupt every bank in creation. And third, you are not, and listen closely now, you are not finished. The world looks at your age and sees sunset. God looks at your seasoned spirit and sees sunrise. Your latter years aren't your leftover years, they're your greater years. But here's what I need you to understand beyond any shadow of doubt. You're not walking this path alone. Right now, as you listen to these words, there are thousands of others just like you, scarred, battle-tested, underestimated, who are waking up to the same truth. You have a family you've never met, who understands exactly what you've been through. And more than that, the God who painted sunsets and carved mountains is still at work in your life. He hasn't retired just because you have. He hasn't moved on just because the world did. Let me ask you something that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. If God has carried you through everything that should have destroyed you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest victory? Before you leave this sacred space we've created together, I want to do something. I want to pray over you like I would pray over my own mother, my own father. So if you're able, I want you to close your eyes right now. And if you can't close your eyes, just let these words wash over you like healing rain. Heavenly Father, I come before your throne right now carrying every person who has heard these words. Lord, you know their names. You know the empty chairs at their tables. You know the phone calls that never come. You know the nights that feel endless and the mornings that bring no relief. But Father, you also know their destiny. I pray right now that you would place your hand on their shoulder. Let them feel your presence so strong that doubt has nowhere to land. Open doors that have been locked for decades. Provide resources they haven't even thought to ask for. Send divine appointments disguised as chance encounters. Bring their children home. Heal their bodies. Restore what the enemy has stolen. But more than any blessing, Lord, remind them that they matter, that their story isn't over, that the best wine has been saved for last. Let them wake up tomorrow knowing, not hoping, not wishing, but knowing that they are chosen, they are loved, and they are absolutely unstoppable. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer over their lives. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me what stirred in your spirit today, what scar became prophecy, what pain finally made sense. Don't hold back your testimony. might be exactly what another soul needs to hear to keep breathing for one more day. And please, if this message touched something deep in your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember they're not alone. There's someone in your life right now, a friend, a neighbor, maybe someone at church who's been feeling forgotten. Send them this video. Be the voice that reminds them they matter. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This isn't just a channel, this is a community of chosen ones who refuse to be counted out. We're building something here that darkness cannot penetrate, and I want you to be part of it. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart when you could have closed it. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, your story isn't over. You are chosen. You are seen. And heaven is not done with you yet. Now go forth and shine, warrior. The photograph they thought would destroy you is about to become the portrait of your resurrection. God bless you mightily.